We were a happy couple. She was a professor at the university, and I was a police officer. We lived comfortably. We had one daughter and no pets, since Sarah was allergic. But when her illness came, I saw how she consumed herself little by little. But I wasn't allowed to show my emotions, even though I was devastated, and I think I still am, because I had to take care of Madison. She didn't understood what was going on at the time, and I was so grateful for that. Mady, that's what her mother used to call her, is walking by herself. She helps me a little around the house. She eats by herself, but she's no different from any 6-yo girl. She needs me all the time, and you could say she's a crybaby as well. But I take care of her. I pick her up when she falls. I put the band-aids on her fingers when she cuts herself cooking. And I have special care of keeping the meds and the gun at a safe distance where she can't reach for them, because she is so curious about everything. I try to do my best to ensure her safety. But the thing is, she sometimes resembles my wife, and I can't take it anymore. She screams at me like she was possessed. Her eyes turn reddish, her voice changes, and she scares the shit out of me. Even her strength. She can almost overpower me at those times. It's like if something evil were inside of her. Still, I can't help but look at her with tears in my eyes, and she started to notice and often tries to comfort me. Those are the scarce times when she regains her lucidity and becomes my Sarah for a couple of minutes. Last night, during a lucid period, she asked me to put her full name on her memorial, Sarah Madison Connors, and then she kissed me and went to sleep. I can't sleep. I am laying beside her with the gun on my hands, thinking that this would be our final night together. I'm sorry for Susan, our daughter. She will find us tomorrow or the day after, but I can't keep going. I hope she doesn't inherit this illness from her mother, but Alzheimer is like a family curse after all. I never realized how much my husband drank until I got pregnant. I guess I was drinking a fair amount myself. 9 months of sobriety. I asked him to abstain with me, but he wouldn't. After I had our daughter, I never felt the need to drink again. But he started drinking more. There were lots of sleepless nights. Our daughter, God, I love her, was a horrible crier. How can such a little angel make such a horrible noise? I knew things had to change when I came home from a morning shift and he was drunk at 1 in the afternoon. I got upset with him and he struck me. Once he sobered up, he promised he'd never drink again. Got on his knees and begged me to stay. I agreed, as long as he stayed sober. He dumped his liquor collection down the drain. Every bottle except one. His father had gifted him some Macallan whiskey. It was expensive, and the last thing my father gave me before he died. It never sat right with me. I was worried something might set him off and he'd be right back in the bottle. So when he wasn't around, I got some rat poison and dosed the bottle. Several boxes, just to be sure. If he ever drank even a drop, it'd be his last. But he never did. Weeks went by. Soon, 6 months. He was much happier, more positive. He laughed like he hadn't in years. I came home from work, and he was rocking our daughter delicately in his arms. She was so quiet. Oh, she's so peaceful. You should have heard her earlier. Was she being fussy? Wailing, must have been teething. How'd you get her to stop? An old wives' trick, a little whiskey on the bottle. I've always been a sucker for surprises. I remember my siblings crouched next to the Christmas tree, shaking and inspecting wrapped packages for any clue as to what might be inside. Not me. I'd wait patiently until Christmas morning and peel back the wrapping paper with my eyes closed to prolong the thrill of the unknown. I was born a sucker for suspense, and I would die that way. As an adult, there were precious few surprises I had to look forward to. One day would flow into the next, with little horror, with months and years following after in an orderly line. Childlike glee for things like Christmas we unbecoming and off-putting for anyone who bought their socks by the jumbo pack and had a direct debit set up for their council tax. That's why I loved Cassie. My best friend knew the true value of breaking the monotony. We'd bonded over our love of mystery novels. Twist endings and gruesome murders provided a surprising, fertile common ground on which to build a lifetime of friendship. Cassie was the only person in my life who appreciated the true value of shock and awe. So when June rolled around, it was the perfect opportunity to throw Cassie the ultimate surprise birthday party, one she would never forget. A good surprise party had a few key things that I absolutely had to get right, so I worked dusk to dawn for 3 days to make sure I had all the details honed to perfection. People who are special to you have to be there to shock you when you walk through the door. Cassie's family weren't the best people, but I know the party wouldn't be complete without them. Even though her childhood had been rough, I knew they would need to be part of the perfect party. They were less than enthusiastic, and I practically had to abduct them to get them to come along. But sure enough, they were in place with the lights down when the time came. Decorations were a must. I had a box of streamers prepared which would give the space that true party feel. They had a funny smell to them, but I suppose they had been in the box for a few days. I was sure Cassie wouldn't mind when she saw the whole scene come together. Finally, the moment of surprise, when the unsuspecting birthday girl walks in expecting something mundane, only for the lights to be thrown on and be blown away by a perfectly executed jump scare. I'd called Cassie over, saying I needed help moving some of my heavy tools. Being the obliging saint she was, she hurried over without protest. This set the scene for me to blow her away. There was a gentle knock on the door, followed by the lock rattling as she turned her spare key and pushed her way into the living room. All at once, I jumped up, flicked the lights on with my left hand and shouted, "Surprise!" at the top of my lungs. Her family, of course, did not join me. Her mother, who burned her with cigarettes whenever she cried, sat headless in the armchair. Her father, who had left her at 5 months old and only came back whenever he needed money, lay across the sofa with a caricature of a smile carved across his sallow face. Her brother, skilled at hitting her in places where the bruises wouldn't show, stretched across the floor, his belly split open to access his entrails. They really did smell, but they added a real flair to the lamps and shelves they were streamed around. Cassie's face went pale as milk. Tears bubbled at the edges of her wide eyes, and she sunk into a low crouch, her shoulders heaving. "Do you like your surprise, Cassie?" I asked expectantly. Her shoulders rose up and down with increasing intensity as a high laugh erupted from deep within her. "How did you know? This is the best birthday ever!" Looking at her rictus grin made me warm all over. "Of course I knew how to throw you the perfect surprise. I am your best friend after all."